All right, so on the review, we're going to look at 9D first. So this one in the instructions, it says to solve by factoring. So whenever we factor, what should be our first step? Huh? GCF. See if there's a GCF. Does this one have a GCF? 2. And X. All right, I'm going to make that pen a little bit chunkier. It's a little too thin. So 2 and X. If I factor out a 2X, what's left over? X and 2. Someone's music loud enough. I'm hearing it over here. Turn it off or down. If you don't want to pay attention, that's on you. But don't make it impossible for the people around you to focus. Because that's what it tells me when your music's that loud, is that you don't care. So to find our solutions, we take each of those pieces and set them equal to 0. So 2x equals 0 and x minus 2 equals 0. So what's our solution for this one? X is 0. So solution number 1. How about for the purple one? X is what? Positive 2. There's one solution, 2 solutions. And it's solved. That's our answer. It was our greatest common factor between 2x squared and 4x. So we always check for a GCF first when we're factoring. Yes, dear. 1C. Boop. Yeah, I'm actually going to do 1A and then we'll do 1C just so we can get the vibe down first. Actually, we can do B. I did that on the first one. Let's do B. So we'll do B and C. So this is when we are looking for what value makes it a perfect square. Ooh, wrong pen. So we know that for it to be a perfect square, this first term needs to be a square, which it is. X has been squared. For this to be a perfect square, C also needs to be something squared. We just don't know what that is yet. That's what we're trying to find. And for this to be a perfect square, we know the middle term, this guy, needs to be made up of 2 times the x from the front times question mark from the back, right? So 2 times, reaching for 10, 2 times x times what equals negative 36x? Negative 18. So question mark equals negative 18. Yes, sir? There are a lot of other factors of 36, but only 18 would multiply by 2 to make 36. So you're right. 36 has a bunch of factors. But the only one that when multiplied by 2 gives us 36 is 18. So really we're taking 36 and dividing by 2. So if question mark is 18, what is the term C going to be?
24.
Yep. Just letting a lot of people say it. 324. All right, I can hear the talking in the video now from over here. Definitely not one of my videos, because that ain't me. Stop watching YouTube in class. It's rude. Okay, so what we did over here is exactly what we're going to do on C. And it's going to be a fraction, and that's okay. Remember, I always give you the harder questions on the reviews and on the homework. You'll never have one. Like, this is the hardest one of this topic. We took our 18 and squared it.
So that's all we have to do is just find what C equals.
It's half of the middle thing and square it. Yep. We're just finding out what C is. So it's the same vibe on C. We know that the first term is x squared. C is going to be something squared. And 9 is 2 times x times question mark. So 2 times x times question mark equals 9x. Yeah. So we're going to divide both sides by 2 and x to figure out that question mark is 9/2 or 4.5. I do not care, genuinely, whether you do fractions or decimals. It does not matter. If question mark is 4.5, what is C?
20.25.
20.25. Or 81/4. And again, I don't care if you do fractions or decimals. The ones on the test are probably going to be more along these vibes than these vibes. Hint. This will be one of the hardest ones we've ever done. Yes, dear. Number 3, absolutely. Number 3, quadratic formula. We love it. Quadratic formula. I do have the formula up on the board. You will be given the formula on the test. It's those same formulas in that order, those exact variables. It's just going to go left to right as opposed to up to down. And I'll leave it up on the board so that we have it there to look at because it'll be familiar stuff. The very, very top one is the quadratic formula. But before I start plugging in values, what do I need to do first with this equation? Subtract 8. I need this thing to equal 0. So we're going to minus 8 from both sides. X squared plus 12x minus 8 equals 0. I'm telling you right now, that'll be the most common mistake on quadratic formulas, that we don't set it equal to 0. After that, it's kind of just identifying and then plugging in. What is our a value? 1. It's the number in front of our x squared. What is our b? 12. And what is our c? -8. So we're going to substitute all those into the quadratic formula. X equals big giant fraction. The opposite of b, which is 12, plus or minus the square root of b.
That formula's going to be on the test, right?
Yep, all those formulas that are on the board will be on the test. Every one of them. B squared, minus, there we go, 4 times A times C divided by 2A. So then we're going to simplify this. I highly recommend you start with simplifying our discriminant, this guy under the radical. Makes our life way easier if we do it in chunks. So x equals -12 plus or minus the square root of, and we can type it into the calculator, which I highly recommend you practice doing way before we get to the test. All right. Our calculator should be loaded. Oop. There we go. So we're going to do our 12 squared squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 8. And you're going to type it in the calculator and get 176. So we have the square root of 176. This is all over 2. Yep. We're not done yet, though, because we got to simplify this. I'm going to go this way, just so I don't crash in my line. X equals the opposite of 12 plus or minus, and we are going to simplify our square root of 176. So we're going to do the square root 176. And in these yellow calculators, it'll simplify it for you. 4 square root of 11. No, try to make it so you can see the whole thing. Which is almost done. We need to look at our coefficients and see if any of them will simplify. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the 12 and 2 and the 4 and the 2. Do all 3 of those divide by the same thing?
2.
2. So our simplified form is going to be, I'm going to write it right on the line, x equals negative 12 divided by 2 gives us negative 6 plus or minus 4 divided by 2 gives us 2 square root of 11. And that's the simplified radical form right there. That's what it is. Ooh, I went way smaller than I needed to, but that's okay. To get our decimal solutions, we split that plus or minus into our 2 options and type them into the calculator. So in the calculator, we're going to put in our negative 6 plus 2 square root of 11. And you can type it in just like that. You'll hit enter, the calculator will try and simplify it for you, and all it does is swap things around. Hit the 2 arrows above the enter key, and it'll give us our decimal of 0.633. We're going to only do 3 decimal places. So our first approximate decimal answer is that x equals 0.633. And our other answer, we're going to go negative 6 minus 2 square root of 11. Again, the calculator is going to try and simplify it for us. It doesn't really see anything to do, so it just goes flip-flop them. And we use the double arrows to switch it to decimal form, negative 12.633. Negative 12.633. This symbol is not a math thing. That's just the word and written as lazily as possible.
We got to write 2 or just 1?
You need to have both decimal solutions. Solutions. So you need to have both. That's where the plus or minus comes in. You have to use the plus and the minus. So we did 1 with a plus, 1 with a minus. That's where we get both of those. Okay, questions on that one? Cool, cool. What next? Number 4. Yeah. This one is, I'm glad you guys picked this one. Because this one, it's mostly a wording question. And mostly that comes from the fact that I didn't get to write the test. But we're going to go through it. It's not asking you something we haven't asked you before. It's just asking it in a weird way. So really what we're asking you to do is to solve this however you want to. So this says, what are your roots? What are your solutions? What does x equal? Find our solutions. It's just worded weirdly. So if we look at this equation and we're asked to solve it, we have a number of options. You could try and factor this. You could complete the square. I really don't recommend that because we have two odd numbers and that's really gross. You could do quadratic formula, any number of choices. Honestly, on factoring this one, we're going to have our a times c is going to be 60. And 60 has so many factors. Picking out the one that's going to have a difference of 7 is going to be obnoxious. So when you have big numbers, awkward numbers, or just numbers we don't like, go with the quadratic formula. It's plug and chug. Doesn't matter what it is, we can plug those in. So we're going to do this one with the quadratic formula to figure out what our solution is. And then I'm going to show you a shortcut to answer the first question earlier. So in this one, just like we did last time, we're going to identify our A, our B, and our C. You could factor this. So factoring, if we have a trinomial and factoring, that's when we're going to use the box. You could. It's not going to be pleasant because, like I said, in the x frame, a times c is 60 and b is 7. So it would need to multiply to make negative 60 and add to make 7, which is gross. And I can't, off the top of my head, think of what it's going to be. But, so, and 60 has about a gazillion factors. So you could factor this. I just don't know what those numbers are going to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to substitute this in. X equals the opposite of b, which is negative 7, plus or minus the square root of negative 7 squared minus 4 times 15 times negative 4 divided by 2 times 15. That's got a minus sign in there. It's just being grumpy said it zoomed in so far. And again, we're wanting to simplify what's under the radical first, that discriminant. So x equals 7 plus or minus, and we're going to type what's under the radical into the calculator. Negative 7 squared minus 4 times 15 times negative 4. If you do not put these parentheses in, you will probably get a different answer than me, especially if you don't put them on the 7 squared. So you got to put the parentheses in because you should get 289. If you don't put the parentheses in, the calculator will do order of operations wrong on the negative 7 squared. It would do 7 squared and then negative. So you got to have the parentheses. So we should have 289. Over 30. So right here, we'll be able to answer the first question. Are we going to have real answers or imaginary answers?
Real.
Real. How do we know that? Because it's positive under the radical. I'm not going to have an I. since this is a number, it's something, I'm going to be adding a thing and subtracting a thing. So we know we're going to have, wrong pen, 2 real answers. Because what is under the radical is positive. That's how we know that. And if that's all that's asked of you, you can stop right there. You could also do that same kind of test with our factored form. If you get factors, we know it's going to have 2 real roots. So then that last question says we have to keep going because it asks what are our solutions. So we're going to do this. So we have our x equals 7 plus or minus the square root of 289. And we're again going to use our calculators because we don't got to do stuff by hand anymore. 289 is 17. So 7 plus or minus 17 over 30. And that we can get actual numbers for. So we're going to split it. We're going to do the plus and the minus. 7, change the colors. 7 plus 17 over 30. And 7 minus 17 over 30. What is 7 plus 17? 24 over 30. Does 24 over 30 simplify?
No.
It does, actually, because both of those are divisible by 6. Yep, I hear it over in the front. 4/5. So then let's do the blue one. 7 minus 17. Negative 10 over 30 is going to simplify down to what? Negative 1/3. So 4, 5, and 6 are just asking you to solve it. Oh, I wrote those on the wrong line. That's what happens when I zoom it in too close. 4/5 and negative 1/3. They're still asking us to solve it. They're just asking us to do it in a really weird way. 2 real roots means I got 2 answers and they don't have I. If we have imaginary answers, so if we have a square root of a negative number, that means we're going to have no real roots, 0 real roots. It's asking how many solutions we got. We got 1, 2. What else do you guys want to do?
We did
2. Let's go 2. Yeah, that's a good one too. So let's write it into vertex form. Or you can complete the square. Completing the square, I think, is the hard way. But you guys can do that if you want to. The easy way, I think, is to take our axis of symmetry and do it like we did when we were graphing. Which, if you look at the board, it's the very, very bottom formula. So that means on the quiz, it's going to be the one all the way to the right. That's our axis of symmetry. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to find the x value of my vertex by doing my axis of symmetry. Negative b over 2a. What is my b value in this formula? Negative 8. Over 2 times my a, which is what? 1. So we have the opposite of negative 8, which is positive 8, over 2. What is 8 over 2?
4.
4. And I have the x value of my vertex. That's where we get that, from the axis of symmetry. To get the y value for my vertex, we're going to take our equation. Y equals, and we're going to substitute in 4 squared minus 8 times 4 plus 5. Bada bing. So we're going to have our y equals, and you can either type this in the calculator or you can do some of this by hand. 4 squared is 16. 8 times 4 is 32 plus 5. So the y value of our vertex is what? Negative 11. And if all we had to do was find the vertex, we could be done. But they did specifically say in the instructions to write it in vertex form. So we're going to do that. That would be our second equation down on the board. Our y equals a, which is the same that we had before, so it's 1. X minus h, which is our vertex point, which is the x. So x minus 4 squared plus k plus negative 11 or minus 11. And this is our vertex form.
So that's how we write it on the test.
Yep. Yes, sir.
H is always the number that you get for the axis of symmetry.
H is always the number you get from your axis of symmetry.
So
Right.
the second equation up there is the vertex form.
Second equation is the vertex form. Yeah, the names of the forms as they go down, we've got our quadratic formula, vertex form, factored form, standard form, axis of symmetry. And that's the same order they're going to be on the test. They're just going to be sideways across the top, not in a vertical chunk like that.
I got a question.
I got an answer.
For the vertex form, if we get a negative, do we put the negative outside the box or inside the box? I mean, yeah, inside, or the parentheses.
So, like, are you saying if your axis of symmetry was negative?
Yeah.
So theoretically, I'm going to just write it over here to the side. So let's say we got an axis of symmetry of negative 3. When we put it into our vertex form, it would be x minus negative 3. How do we write x minus negative 3 without it looking quite that gross? X plus 3. Okay, so if you have a double negative, it becomes a plus. Does that make sense, DJ? Okay. I'm just going to erase that because we don't have a 3 there. We're doing good, guys. We've got about 15 more minutes. You guys want to pick a couple more to do? Or do you want to have time to work? Okay. So take the rest of this time and work on stuff. Ask questions. I'm still here. I'm happy to help. You want to do one more, Dorian? Which one?
The second one for number 8.
Number 8, the second one. Cool. So you have a couple of options on this one. You could do this as a perfect square trinomial. We write this as a perfect square. You could also set it equal to 0 and factor it with x in box. Totally fine. The way I did it on the answer key is that I noticed that this is a perfect square trinomial, like those guys we did first where we found the C. It's already set up like that. This one is x minus 5 squared. This is x squared. This is 5 squared. And this is x times 2 times negative 5. So this is a perfect square trinomial already. So we could solve this with square roots. Square rooting both sides. You could absolutely also set this equal to 0 by subtracting 36 and getting, I haven't done that one yet, 25 minus 36. I want to say it's 9? Or is it 11? It's 11. Minus 11 equals 0. You could do it this way and then factor. This totally fine. It will still factor here. You could X and box it. You will get the same answers. I'm going to do it with the square roots because that's the way that I did it on the answer key so we see it. Because here I could square root both sides. My square root and my square cancel out. And we get that x minus 5 equals plus or minus square root of 36 is 6. So we're going to have x minus 5 equals 6, or x minus 5 equals negative 6. So we're going to solve both of these by adding 5 to both sides. So we're going to wind up with x equals 11 and x equals negative 1. If you factored this and you did our x in box, you would get the exact same factors. Because our pair of numbers that multiplies to make negative 11 and adds to make negative 10 are negative 11 and positive 1. When you box that, you get the exact same factors. X, let's see, x squared, 11, negative 11x, and negative 1x. I'm out of like pixels here. But we'll get the exact same factors. So you get the same answer no matter which way you do it. This is the same thing, a different method. But you'll get the same answers. Okay? So you don't have to solve it this way. This is a grumpy screen now because mine just totally froze. There we go. Come on. This is exactly as functional.
Positive 11 or negative 11? Because up there it's negative 11.
When I set these factors equal to 0. Okay, yeah. So in factored form, it does have that opposite sign. So x minus 11 equals 0 would give us a solution of x equals 11. So it's the exact same answers. It does not matter how you do it, just that you do it.
So I could do it like any of the methods that it says in the problem?
Any of the methods. Any of the methods. Yeah.
Is that a 4?
Oh, inside the box? No, that's a negative 11x. It's just I had about 3 pixels to write in.
Is that a 1?
Here, let me zoom it in so we can, and I can fix this. Let me make the pen a little bit skinnier and I'll fix it. So our box was our x squared, our negative 11, our, right? Yeah, negative 11x, negative, a positive 1x. Like that. That's how the box was filled in. Just taking those chunky boys away. Those are our factors. Okay? So you can solve it however you want. If it's solved by any method, I mean any. Okay? So work on stuff. You guys have a little bit less than 10 minutes left in the period. Quizzes tomorrow. Tomorrow's a quiz. Quizzes tomorrow.